So, welcome to the Decentralized Mind podcast. I'm your host, Emmanuela, and today I have Erwan Le Corre from MovNat and his book. It's probably reversed, but The Practice of Natural Movement.
Hmm.
And can you, maybe in case people don't know too much about you, say just a little briefly about yourself?
I'm the founder of MovNat, which I'm basically the natural movement pioneer. Back in the days, which is 16 years ago now, that idea that we could simply get fit by moving naturally the way humans are designed to move, which is also the way young kids everywhere around the world are designed to move. That idea was, in fact, new to the mainstream idea and the fitness community. And so, let's say I'm the original gangster of natural movement. I said, well, look, natural movement, that means we walk, we run, we hang and climb, we jump and land, we move on all fours, we balance, we lift and carry things. We do all these movements that are basically practical in the real world. So let's say I'm mostly known for being that guy that brought this to the world, and not just the idea or philosophy, but an actual method that can be learned and taught. We actually do certification. And more recently, if I may say, in the last 5 years, I've been really into breathing, but also no breathing. And so mindless, not mindless actually, but mindful breath holding, and somehow mindless in the sense that uh, the mind can really go away. It becomes a meditation. Actually, I just jumped into this conversation with you, Emmanuela, after I just did my practice of holding my breath for a long time.
Nice. Now, because I like in my world, I help women who have, bad periods and stuff like that with light and all these things. But, as a woman, one of the things that I hear all the time is, well, you just got to lift heavy weights, right? Like that's what you have to do to maintain bone density for all of these, silly things. And can you help me debunk that from a natural movement perspective? Like, obviously, we would be carrying our kids on our back. I wore my children, all the way until they were like 3. So things like that. But uh, yeah.
Okay. Well, it's very simple. The idea is that to be healthy as a woman, but in fact, it's really as a human being, if you are going to lift heavy, you are going to increase bone density, which is also going to increase muscle mass because it's just correlated. Obviously, it has many positive health effects. And so that's something you should do. Yes, that's definitely something you should do, but wait a minute. How? What? How often? In what way? In what place? In what environment? How often? Etc. Those are very important questions because if you hear, oh, okay, I've got to lift heavy, that means what? Doing Olympic weightlifting? Lifting, what is heavy? What is heavy to you? What is heavy? What is enough, heavy enough, or too heavy, etc. Okay, so now we're going to start looking at the details of this. And by the way, yes, physical activity that makes you do what's called resistance training, where you have to use your muscles to pull something, to lift something, is probably going to be beneficial. Actually, it will be even beneficial if you do it right, because you can do it completely wrong, and that can really work against you. So it's a vast subject. I'm going to try to distill it very simply. It's one of the one of the activities or one of the lifestyle changes or choices that you could choose in your life to support your health. There are many others. Sleeping more if you're sleep deprived, lowering your stress if you're constantly stressed, if you can lower it, getting sunlight, grounding your feet, being in nature. Maybe that can be dancing and laughing. Anything that's good for your mood, for your well-being, for your happiness, that's going to decrease your stress. That's going to increase your immune system, the strength of it. That's going to decrease inflammation. So lifting heavy. Okay. All right. From the natural movement perspective, we're all supposed to sometimes lift things, lift kids, lift toddlers, lift a bag of groceries, lift something at home that we need to move, lift and carry it. Okay, so lifting and carrying are natural movements. So when we look at people around the world that still live a rather natural lifestyle, a simple lifestyle, and especially women carrying the water, carrying the babies, carrying the firewood, things like that. Yes, they are lifting and not just lifting, they're lifting and carrying heavy, but not necessarily very heavy, not necessarily doing sets and reps and pushing themselves to the limit the way we have been somehow uh, formatted mentally to expect. Okay, so you need to lift heavy, you've got to do it, and now you got to do it this way, and that's the way. So now you are going to do deadlifting and heavy deadlifting, and you're going to do snatches, things like this. Like, no, no, that's not, this part is not necessary. That's where, yes, lifting some way is natural. To do it regularly is good, very beneficial. But the extreme of fitness that is typically provided as the way to do it, that is a no, because it can easily be just way too much, way more than you need to reap all the benefits of exercising and using your muscles. All right,
And
so
I think also when someone goes to the gym and takes a bunch of dumbbells and is lifting them, especially as a woman, you're kind of told, okay, well, you want to sort of lift heavy enough, but not too heavy, not too light, because you want to do enough repetition. But I'm not done reading your book, but I'm about one third of the way through, and you mentioned something interesting which resonated with me is that I feel like the typical standard workouts, they're not repetitive, they're more repetitive than repetition.
yes, so it's a centralized, it's a conventional approach to exercising your muscles based on kinesiology. You may use dumbbells. By the way, ask yourself, why are they called dumbbells? What's smart about it? Especially if you're just going to try to isolate muscles or use exercise machines that will isolate muscles and force you into movement patterns that are very limited and limiting your body, limiting your mind too. It has nothing to do with the way you would normally move weights in a more real world natural setting. So on top of those environments being very artificial, it's all made of metal and plastic and crazy artificial lights. Uh, Basically, that's an environment that in itself is not particularly healthy. That's the least we can say. It's actually not healthy at all. But not everybody has access to a backyard or outdoors. Plus, it's going to be, it's fall has arrived and it's going to be the winter. It's going to be harsh out there. So I understand that it can be quite practical to exercise indoors, but you don't need to go to the gym. You don't. you could easily, once you learn the basic techniques such as deadlifting, lapping, and then waist carrying, chest carrying, shoulder carrying. There's so much you can do at home with a sandbag, with a medicine ball, with a kettlebell, with a pile of books almost, or anything that's sufficiently heavy, and that could be great, by the way, to literally do that kind of workout with if you have a young child. They're going to have fun being held and lifted and carried. And you can have a child. I did that when I was a kid. Well, when my kids were kids, if I may say. Um, when I was a kid too, my dad sometimes would, carry me on his shoulders and like run down the hills. But when my boys were little, I would carry them on my shoulders. I still can do it, by the way, today. And you can do split squats and deep squats and kneeling and all kind of variety of movements that's going to be way more beneficial from the kinesiological, functional, physiological standpoint of your body, a natural human body, instead of doing, like you were mentioning, repetitions and being repetitive. There's nothing wrong with repeating a given movement. It's totally fine. The problem is when you only repeat the exact same movements, always the same, always in the same way, always with the same load or the same object, and therefore there is no variety. And that variety or lack thereof, that is that variety that is missing. The problem is that your workouts, your exercise is one, can easily be very boring. Two, it's not as beneficial as it could be because of a lack of variety of angles, of the changes, but I call the variability. It's not just the variety, it's the variability. So variety would be the number of, say, movement patterns or techniques or variations of movement that you are using. Variety could be also the environment. It means where you are, what you are, the kind of object, the kind of surface, the kind of weight distribution that you're using with the objects that you're manipulating. And last is to not just do, say, for instance, 10 repetitions of one, then 10 repetition of the next, and 10 repetition of the next, but you could do two of one, and then four of another one, and then seven of another one. You could just change things around without even counting, by the way, and just focus more on your sensations, more than a rigid program. I want to add this, Emmanuela, is that often, yeah, like women are going to be told, okay, you need to do this by some guy, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this, you need to do that. Sure, why not? That can be good. That can be a good program. There's nothing wrong. You can be tipped by or guided by a man or woman, by in different type of fitness modalities. But there is something very empowering in also learning some basics for yourself, and then feeling a little more, doing what's a little more intuitive also, um, instead of just thinking that you know nothing and that you should just be told exactly what to do and follow that program somehow. I wouldn't say mindlessly, because you can be quite dedicated and quite mindful about following a program, but I would say mindlessly in the sense that you may not have investigated or critiqued what you've been told to do. And so if somebody tells you, "Oh, do this," and you, okay, I'll do that. I'm not do this. Okay, I'll do that. But is it really what you need? That's the question. So what would you do the question would be, what would you do as a woman in a more natural environment or in a more, let's say, simple society, what would be the practical needs? What would be the typical movements in a day that would require me to maybe exert a bit more strength instead of thinking, okay, it's got to be that dumbbell, it's going to be that number of repetitions, and it's about the glutes or it's about the biceps, and it's very robotic. It's very, I don't know. It's, you see, it depends on your mindset. Some people will love it, and some people will be like, no, not for me. And that actually explains why so many people actually never go to the gym, never step into a gym because they don't like the environment, they don't like the mindset, they don't like the workout, and it's okay that they don't like it, but doesn't mean that they wouldn't enjoy actually to exert their muscles and to do something that makes them feel strong if it was more natural, more real, more organic. That's
There's
my
something, boring, I think I find anyways, about going to a gym and trying to, lift or whatever. Whereas, I had horses for a long time, and one of the things we used to do was stack hay bales, right? They're 40, 60 pounds a pop. And you that's
wow.
no problem. You're outside, it's like you're motivated. And then you step into a gym and you're looking at a bunch of equipment and the lights are blaring. You're like, I don't want to do anything.
That is so true. And because when you do the that kind of forming or well, in that case, it's not forming, but it's related. But the point is, it's real world. It's real world. Everything is real world. You're you're outside. You don't have to ask yourself, what muscles am I going to work out if I do this workout? No, you're just doing what needs to be done. And you know, you've got to use your muscles and your body and your movement and your attention. And it's very practical and it adapts to what's real. And the mindset is there. The directness of that effort is beautiful. Whereas in a gym, you have to ask yourself or scratch your head, like, what is this good for? Why am I supposed to do this? And of course, some expert is going to show up and be like, of course, listen, this is good for your, transversus abdominis or whatever it is. And it's good for your core. Typically, it's always good for your core, right? Because if it's not good for your core, it feels like you have not done a core workout. It's like, wow, what am I going to the gym for? So it's so predictable and basically so it can be really dumb. And it's the truth.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
some people, oh no, don't say that. You can't say that, like it's good and it can be really good for your health and your structural integrity and your posture. Yes, 100%. I agree. There's no doubt that can be some benefits, but let's not skip the fact that it can be so boring and so not organic and so not natural and so many people are just not into that. So if you're not into that, what's the solution for you? What's the alternative? And that's natural movement. And that's basically going back to what once was the main, if not the only way to exercise, which was people had to do things. They lived and worked on the farm. They had to carry those buckets full of something before it was called farmer carry inside a gym with dumbbells. They had to do it for reals because they didn't have a choice. It was not an option. And there are many other movements like that. And so when you remember the practical reason why you're doing these movements, it helps. It helps be like, oh yeah, I like it. It's real.
and I don't think it translates very well either. When people do say core exercises and gym, but then, I do you ride, have you ever ridden a horse?
Yes,
Yes. Okay. So do you ride bareback?
I have. I have. It's pretty scary. First time I did it, I thought I was going to die. I didn't. fortunately. But yes, but I'm really in no way an expert. I just have that experience for sure.
Yeah. So, like people who do core exercises, they work out a lot and then they try to ride a horse bareback and they can't stay on. All right. They have no core. It's like they're isolating parts of their muscles, but their muscles don't know how to work together in the real world.
It, it this this happens all the time in every single physical activity. So people go to the gym and they do what's called GPP, general physical preparedness. So do your core, do a bit of stretching, do a bit of cardio, do a bit of upper body, do a bit of lower body. Okay, now you're ready for anything. Absolutely not. You are in a better shape than people who don't do any exercise, but you forget the specificity of every activity requires more than just the hardware, which is your tissues, the ligaments, the tendons, the muscles, and those physiological adaptation. It requires brains. It requires the part of your nervous system in the brain and the cerebellum, but also in in the just the conscious mind that is able to operate your body, okay, to make your body move in specific ways in a specific context. So there's an acronym for that. It's called the SET principle, specific adaptation to impose demand. So obviously riding a horse bareback is a very specific demand. You've got to feel in your rear and legs, you've got to feel the position on onto the skin and the back of the and the fur of the horse. But not only that, but then it moves. And so with every movement, and then the horse moves on a terrain that can be diverse. It can go up and down and sideways and everything every single time, basically. This is an exercise in balancing. You're balancing on a live animal that is moving maybe on a wild terrain. This is incredibly complex, the brain. And so having a strong core is not going to be a substitute for the intelligence, the specific experience and intelligence of the brain in managing this task that is, again, very complex, very adaptable. One split second of inattention and you're off balance. So you need constant adjustment and constant attention, both conscious and unconscious, of what's happening while you are doing this. And why can I describe this as if I was almost like an expert? Because it's exactly the same that applies if you are on a surfing board or balancing in nature on a fallen tree and other situations like that. It's natural movement. It's very complex. Words don't help. Thinking doesn't help. Being aware, being very attentive does help. I mean, it's necessary. But if you don't have the experience, the specific experience, you're not going to tell somebody who's new to bareback horse riding, hey, all you need to do is to pay attention. And if you have enough core strength, you're good. No. Have you ever done that? No. Okay. So you don't have the experience. Okay. So that means you don't have the neural pathways in your brain. They're not there. You need to build them. Ah, okay. So how about some more core? Not going to help. That's it. So if you once we understand this about whoop, sorry about that. I thought it was. But once you understand that about bareback horse riding, you understand that about basically any real world movement that requires skills, experience, attention, and yes, some strength, some endurance, some flexibility, some of those physiological adaptations. But physiological adaptations that you gain, let's say, even with a so-called functional training in an indoors gym is never going to be a substitute for technique, skill, and experience that you can only acquire in in a real context, in the specificity of a context that you want to be ready for.
The other thing I want to bring this conversation to is when I was reading, the beginning of your book, and you talk about how we make everything like monotone, or, like the streets are flat, the sidewalks are flat. We're removing obstacles. And that actually reminded me of how people childproof their homes for little children, right? They make sure they're bumping everything, they remove all the obstacles. They're doing the same thing for them, which to me always seems like it's counter, it doesn't seem normal. Like I never childproof anything in my house, and my kids maybe bumped their heads once and they never did it again. But they gained spatial awareness of their environment that allowed them to adapt to other people's environments instead of me having to constantly be like, oh no, they're gonna get hurt. No, they were fine, you know? And
Yes, I mean, yeah, it's you have to fall and get back on your feet. You have to try and fail and then find a way to success. And sometimes that happens very quickly. Sometimes it takes dozens of repetitions. Sometimes it takes hundreds or thousands of repetitions. It depends on what is it that what is the new skill, new ability that you're trying to acquire. Kids have countless of abilities they need to acquire to become more and more autonomous. That doesn't mean that childproofing is a bad idea overall. It depends on what, and if you're obsessed, because for instance, yeah, if you're obsessed with giving them an environment that's completely risk-free, so first off, number one, it's impossible. Secondly, it's actually very bad for them because they have to learn the real world and the risk and what to pay attention to. Now, of course, you need to child-proof a swimming pool. You need things like that. If you are cooking food, you want to make sure that I don't know. I would always, when my kids were little, I would always use the burners that they could not reach, and not those that are like right there, and they could grab the pan and things like that. Electricity, wherever the potential real danger, like a serious injury, is, of course, this you need to make sure that they're not going to be endangering themselves if you're not paying attention. But otherwise, of course, it's it's important to let them try. Interestingly, back to the idea of working out for adults, what do you think is, let's say, using exercise machines that isolate your pecs or your shoulders and your back and your quads or your hamstrings, and trying to work out that way in a very compartmentalized fashion, as opposed to using your whole body in a natural environment, or even if it's a controlled environment that's safer, but you're still doing movements where, hey, yeah, if I sit there the wrong way, or then I could fall, so I'd better be accurate, therefore I'd better be attentive. You see my point. In natural movement, you have to do that all the time. So you're always working out your brain, basically. You cannot be mindless. Whereas on a treadmill, often people listen to a podcast or they literally look at TV in front of them, means they're completely mindless. Means it's they're here doing their workout, but they're not here and in the here and the now what they're doing with their body. Unless when they really look at themselves in the mirror because they're thinking about the aesthetics of it, or what's going to be the cosmetics result of what they do. But otherwise, often people look at that kind of indoors artificial workout as a chore, something they must impose themselves to do for very superficial results in the end, like mostly what they look like, what the body is going to look like, instead of being an activity that feels rewarding in the moment, something that can enjoy to do. And I think that would be a better deal if you can enjoy your physical activity instead of looking at it as, okay, I gotta go. I bought that membership, so now let's do it. But you actually don't like what you're doing.
What do you think it is about how we think that makes us want to constantly make the environment boring? Like, I feel like we have this desire. I feel like everyone's like, "Oh no, but you need routine. Everything needs to be the same." And I don't know, I guess I grew up in a different way, so I don't think that way. And to me, routine is boring. And nature has rhythms, the sun rises and the sun sets, but even that changes. And nature is so varied, and we always, I don't know, I see people always want to make things boring. I need the same thing to happen every single day. I need this. Why?
Why? Well, society and culture is very centralized. Means mostly most people do about the same thing, live about the same way.
Have we just
So,
gotten used to being
so,
bored
so there
all
are
the
there
time?
are things like that. Well, look, you're sent to school early on in your life. You're a little kid. You should be playing outside in the woods. I don't know, in a village. But no, you have to sit several hours a day on a chair with a table or desk, listening to one adult. All the kids are your age. Okay. And everybody needs to do the same thing at the same time all the time. What does that say? What does that do to you, to your mind, to your psyche? How does it format you? Because if you were to, I don't know, grow up in a little village and let's say there would be some homeschooling, but not like going to a public school like this. So you would probably hang out with kids different ages, some older, some younger, learn from different people. Maybe you would participate to some tasks. Sometimes everybody would, regardless of their age, they would do a little something, I don't know, with what's been harvested or I don't know. So I'm not saying, oh, okay, that's the way to live. That's not what I'm saying. But you just ask me why. Why are so many people reluctant to anything that's a little out there? Means out there where? Why out? Out of what? Well, out of what they expect, out of what they have been consciously or unconsciously told since a young age that is the right thing in the right place at the right time in the right way, and anything else is weird, is strange, is probably dangerous or undesirable. So you go to school, especially today, kids don't really, not everywhere, obviously, but many kids get to play outside much less than they used to. So even when they're home, they're indoors. When they're in school, they're indoors. Artificial environments, artificial light, everything, screens. And so it's like being in a box. It's basically being confined. It's almost like being in a jail of your mind and of your behavior and of your horizon in life. So how would you expect individuals that grow up like that from a young age to adulthood to be a little wild or to be creative, to be feeling free to behave differently or to go for activities that are beyond that scope? Okay. So that's
Maybe.
the very principle of centralization. Centralization is not just about medicine and or finances or institutions and things like that. The centralization that most people don't see, it's their own behaviors.
Yeah.
And the reason why we ever behave a certain way is because of our beliefs, our perception. So the way we think. But unless you question that and you go into the genesis of, oh, why do I think this way? Why do I believe that way? Why do I value this and don't value that? Why do I trust this but don't trust that? Why am I the way I am? What makes me be who I am? My thinking, my values, my expectations, and as a result, my choices and behaviors in my life. If you never question that, it's unexamined. And there's no way you can change something that you do not examine. So if you don't examine anything about you, how you think, how you live, you're never going to change anything or substantially. And therefore, it's very likely that you will live a conventional life. And there are pros and cons to that. But what you call freedom in that case is very limited. So your pursuit of happiness is going to be, for the most part, dictated by the norms, cultural, institutional norms. If that makes you happy, fine. I like to offer alternatives.
Yes. I think that what you said brings a good point. Maybe we are training the adaptability out of our children when they go in school, and maybe we're making change dangerous to them because change in our modern world is outside of the norm because we have constant repetition, whereas in nature, change is the standard. There is no day that's the same. There is no, if you're outside hunting and you go on the exact same spot on the exact same hunt day after day in the week, every single day is going to be different.
Yeah, so it's interesting that, and that's a general observation, our lives are very predictable for the most part, or we try to make them as predictable as possible. And that's when also we get bored and we want adventure or we want change or variety. How are we going to make that happen? How are we going to procure that excitement of novelty in our life, knowing that Monday to Friday, weekends, breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, looking at your phone, driving the car. There's a lot of repetition in a normal life. There's a lot of repetition. So what makes us excited? Okay. Well, maybe when I watch shows. So when we watch shows, all of a sudden we are absorbing ourselves by a narrative. So it's the modern version of storytelling. Used to be people telling stories. Now it's like the story is on the screen and you can access millions of them. Micro stories, social media, to micro something, micro excitement of something different, of a contrast. Oh, a new person, a new message, a new voice, a new whatever it is that I'm looking at. But that's proxy. That's not you doing it. It's you watching other people doing it, saying it, living it, experiencing it. It's not you. So it's fake. So you're still bored because it all feels empty. You can read a novel. So if you're into romantic stuff, read a romantic novel and imagine that perfect love or that impossible love or that is both perfect but impossible, whatever. Because you're trying to, or a history thing where there's a war and heroes and big things are at stake. Whoa, dramatic too. So basically, you're trying to create the experience of drama in your life by proxy, that it is based on a real facts, real true story, or it's complete fiction. It doesn't matter because once you are hypnotized by the narrative, it feels like it's real anyways for a moment. And then you're like, okay, I got a break from boring routine, I can get back to it. I know it's pretty brutal what I'm saying, but if you pay attention, you know it's true.
It is because just look at, health. People struggle to make small changes to their routine because they're change. Oh, you mean I have to wake up and watch the sunrise? Ah, it's free. You just step out your door. It's not that hard. But the concept of change is so hard for people. And maybe it makes a little more sense. I didn't go to school in elementary school, right? So for me, I don't get it. I was constantly chasing a new adventure every day, But
Yes.
but I think if you think of it that way, where you're training your mind and maybe your nervous system too, to constantly require the same old thing every single day, then doing something different is very hard.
Yes, exactly. You are okay. So we are meant to regulate ourselves all the time. So if you're hungry, you eat. If you're thirsty, you drink. If you're tired, you rest. And if you're rested, then probably you want to move and do something. If it's too cold, then you put a sweater on. If it's too hot, then you go in the shade, things like that. Okay, so regulation is really mostly and fundamentally based on basic physiology. Um, but beyond that, there's also the existential side of life. And that existential side of life, some people wish it was beautiful or meaningful and exciting and all of that. Yet there's no decision to change anything or to make your life a little more adventurous or different. Therefore, again, routine sets in, and there are some advantages to routine. Don't don't misunderstand me. All I'm saying, it's all a matter of balance. But if there's an anxiety about change, and that's the point I wanted to make. Whenever you are doing something unfamiliar, for most people, that's a threat. You are outside of your comfort zone because you are outside of the context that you are used to, that you're accustomed to. New place, new people, new activities, new, I don't know, new way of thinking, new way of eating, new way of moving, new way of whatever, something new, new experience. And so that's a big paradox in today's society is that people are craving novelty, but they're not taking, and what I'm saying is a generality, okay? Most people are not really taking any risk doing any substantial change. So the way they procure the illusion or substitute for that change is by proxy through screens, other people's stories, other people's experience, not their own. So again, it feels empty and it's not satisfactory because you're not doing it. It's just like thinking that you're traveling to a new country and eating these different foods and discovering the whole marvelous new culture and everything. But you're just imagining it. You're not actually living it. It will become true when you actually book your flights and go. And probably you don't even book anything else. You don't even know exactly where you're going to go and what you're going to do and what's going to happen. You just go. That's being adventurous. And now you're going to live something real. But if that makes you afraid, no, you're going to go on the planet, whatever, discovery stuff on some channels and some websites of whatever, some social media accounts where you can get a glimpse of these places. Oh, Indonesia, oh, Bali, oh, Australia, oh, this and whatnot. So if you live in Australia, then you want to look at someplace, I don't know, in Japan. And if you live in Japan, you're like, oh my God, Australia, okay? Because better, always better on the other side. It's always greener. But you're still not living it. You're not having the experience of it.
Yeah.
So do you want the real deal or do you want to dream?
Yes. And if you struggle with, if you struggle with that, then maybe moving outside might make you a little more comfortable with change. And that might change your perspective on a lot of things.
Yes, being outside already, that's more real. The sunlight wakes up your brain, even if it's not sunny that day, but the actual natural light is going to enter your skin, enter your eyes, and hit your brain, and therefore already alter and actually support your psyche. So basically, you can get a high by just being in the sunlight, just being outside, just looking at trees moving in the wind and not a screen. Because when you look at a screen, but it's a little the same like looking at a book. You know, oh no, books are way better. No, you look at a book and it's good to read, by the way, but you still, it's a closed vision. It's not a horizon. It's gonna make you transport into whatever considerations or imaginary, but it happens in your mind. It's all virtual. Again, it's still not real. Real is mean the vision goes far. You use your senses. You hear the wind. You hear the water stream. You hear the birds. You feel the earth. You smell the air. You smell the earth. You smell the water. You smell the trees. All of that. You feel the sun on your face or the wind. Everything organic, everything natural, everything real. And then you move. Your body moves. If you ask people, why do you think you're bored? Why do you think you're depressed? I'm gonna be like, oh, I don't know, maybe my childhood and my trauma or whatever. Yeah, maybe that definitely. I mean, that can be impacting you even years later. But most importantly, when's the last time you were outside? Like really outside, not just walking your dog for 15 minutes. Outside, go outside, like go in nature, go on a hike, fuel your spirit and your body with the presence of nature and the earth and the spirit that created it for a substantial amount of time. Because you can be pretty sure that most of the rest of your time in a day is going to be spent indoors, probably looking at walls, screens, and that's it. Working. But when you don't work, because everyone needs to work, but when you don't work, you're still not giving yourself that natural freedom. So you're confined, just like you were when you were a kid going to public school and then university and then a job and then another job and then a house and then another house. And then it's all mostly indoors. So, yeah, more nature, more time outside, more movement outside, more sunlight.
What would you say would be easy ways to get in more natural movement outside, either throughout the day or in the morning after work for people, let's say people living in a suburb, I can think of the obvious ones would be if there's trails nearby, hiking would be better than walking on the street, although obviously anything is better than nothing. What would be your top tips for, say, people living in smaller towns, like not downtown cities, because then you get into a whole other conversation to
If you
incorporate.
if access to a natural environment, even though maybe small, but natural environment is not easy if it takes you, I don't know, half-hour drive or commuting, I don't know, like taking a train, and it's probably not going to be easy when it's going to be winter. It gets dark early, then it's really cold, then maybe it's icy, muddy, rainy. It's not easy to be outside, though. It's always possible. You can always equip yourself and also just accept that, okay, it's a seasonal change. It's not supposed to be summer all year long. But otherwise, if you are really in a big city where access to nature is not a possibility, you want to embrace a mindset that is opportunistic, that is adaptable. So let me give you an example, or I'm going to use a metaphor. If you if young kids are indoors in an apartment, what do you think they're going to do once if you're the caregiver, going to be tell them, okay, be quiet, watch a show on your iPad or on TV, and the moment you leave the door for a moment because you walk the dog or something, what are they going to do? They're going to vault over the couch. They're going to crawl under the table. They're going to jump off stuff and climb stuff and all. They're going to be like, yeah, nobody's watching and we're free. We're going to try to not break anything, and they might break something, but they're going to do everything that's forbidden. But that's actually everything that's fun. Why? Because they're little animals. They're young animals. We could say, oh no, we're human beings. We're not animals. Well, I don't care. They want to move like all young creatures of every species do when they're little, that it is a puppy or kitty or baby elephant or baby lion, doesn't matter, a cub. What do they want to do? They all like want to move around and do silly things and roll around and hang or jump or try things, move their body, have fun. And that's the playful phase of natural movement. So as human beings, we are born with that innate drive of natural movement. And society and culture is busy telling us no, 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 don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. Stay quiet, stay still. It's not the right time. It's not the right place. And guess what? It's never the right place, never the right time, anyways. So it feels really like a deprivation. So kids want to do that. So why am I using that metaphor? Well, because look, you're a grown up. So you're supposed to be intelligent and reasonable and sensible and all of that. So if you work out, well, it has to be a program with sets and reps and exercise machines and a proper environment. That's called a gym. You need to take your membership and you need to have a program and maybe a coach or like really? Like no. Look, you could be hiking and on your hike you start to jog a bit and then maybe, I don't know, the road goes a little up and down. Okay, great. I'm gonna jog up and down. Then maybe there's the side of or the edge of a sidewalk. Well, you could just balance there. Just place your feet like that in line and practice some balance. And maybe at some point there's a park there, like a playground for kids, and you're gonna do some hanging and some swinging and let go and land and maybe roll and do all these silly things that only kids should be doing. And just remember that you once loved to do that, and what took that joy away? And why is it that you should never have access to it ever again in your life? Who said so? Who dictated that? And do you want to take that freedom? And do you want to reclaim that joy? If you do, then do it because it's your freedom. Don't be afraid of whoever is going to think whatever because it's only happening in their mind, not in yours. You might be thinking of what others may think of you. You have no idea what they think or don't think. You don't even know they're looking at you or thinking anything of you. So be secure and go get it. go get what you want. Go get the experience that you've been missing for so long, feeling free, feeling explorative, feeling adaptable, having fun, balancing, jumping, landing, hanging, swinging, all these movements. They're valuable. No need for instruction. If you want instruction, if you want to become better at this and more technical, the method I've designed, MovNat, does exactly that. It's a little like when you do a martial arts because you want to learn to defend yourself or fight, and you're going to learn techniques. Why? Because instantly going to make you better. Well, apply that mindset to the whole scope of natural movement abilities. You can learn techniques for balancing, for jumping and landing, for climbing, for lifting and carrying, for doing all these things. So that's the method that I've designed. But even if you don't learn that method and those techniques, you can start with exploration and having fun and grant yourself, gift yourself with that freedom and that liberation. It's gonna feel like a liberation.
If you have children, don't let them be the only ones playing on the playing ground. Don't
Oh,
sit on the sidelines. Jump in.
children, then you have the perfect excuse if you ever needed one, is and you're gonna be the cool parent who actually partakes in the fun of natural movement instead of being that sorry but pretty uncool parent who just on Facebook or on Instagram while their kids are having fun and they are completely dissociated from them.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just sit on the bench and maybe talk to a stranger instead of being with their kids and having fun together, or they talk with strangers on the phone through social media, or just look at strangers that posted something today and you're absent. It's an absence. It's a digital absence, or well, a digitally induced absence
Yes.
of your absence of your presence with your kids and with the moment that could be lived and shared joyfully, instead of trapping your mind into that social media thing. Which, by the way, people are gonna watch this, are gonna be like, oh, what a oh, the irony. Well, because I'm watching content and that guy is talking about like stop watching content. So first off, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's all bad. It depends on what you consume and for what reasons and to what extent. But most importantly, if you are at a park and you are a parent and your kids are there playing in front of you and you are watching this very video right now, just stop, pause, okay, go play with the kids and then watch the rest later.
Yes, and it's okay to seek inspiration from content, whether it's books or watching things or whatever, but then you must take that and do, right? Like as a kid, I loved horses. I read books on horses all the time. Then I got my own horse and I stopped reading them because I went traipsing around with him instead. You can take inspiration from things, learn, understand that it's fine if you're playing on the playing ground with your kid and then you go do it. All right. Because if you just spend your time watching it, then, like we said, you're not actually experiencing that. And it explains in a large part why we're chasing adrenaline or proxy rushes or, all these types of content that's really popular on TV and everywhere else because you're not going out and doing.
Exactly. Exactly. Agreed.
Well, thank you so much for this conversation. And to wrap it up, maybe can you share the best thing for somebody who wants to get into natural movement to do, where to find you, follow you on socials for inspiration?
The best really is to go simply to go to the MovNat website. So that's MovNat.com, MovNat. So it's like condensed word for moving naturally or moving in nature. And you can subscribe to the newsletter, get free natural movement sessions that you can follow along. We have a number of e-courses where you learn techniques, you learn movements, you learn protocols. We also have workshops, retreats, certification, and we've been doing that for 16 years and been the leader in that natural movement trend, um, and teaching this worldwide.
Awesome. Well,
And,
thank you so
and
much.
I'm available on Instagram and Facebook. Even though I at the moment I'm a bit of an elusive cat. I love to do podcasts like this one with you, Emmanuela, but otherwise I'm not like the guy who is posting every single day. At least I've not done that in the last 16 years, but it's possibly I will change that at some point and share more.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much. And thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Emmanuela.